An hour had passed since my birthday dinner was supposed to start. Dishes had gone cold, and the waiters had asked several times if we wanted to bring out the cake. I sat at the head of the table, staring at my chat history with Lance Mitchell. The last message I sent this morning still lingered. "Can you make it to my birthday?" My parents sat to my right, their faces subtly showing signs of anger. Mitchell's mother sat on my left, still wearing a warm smile. "He'll be here soon." I called him and he said he's on his way, she said. He hadn't shown his face for almost 2 weeks. 2 months ago, he told me about Brooke Taylor's return to the country. He showed me a photo of her leaving the airport. "She's still as captivating as ever. Time has been kind to her," he said. The flippancy in his eyes and the double meaning in his words made my palms instantly go cold. He had never been at peace with marrying me. Not for a single day. Suddenly the door burst open. Lance walked in with his arm around Brooke. My dad jumped to his feet, his eyes wide with shock. My mom gripped his hand tightly, though she didn't really need to. My dad stammered, "Mitch, this is..." Lance smiled, pulled out the chair nearest the door and helped Brooke sit down. He then sat next to her, draping one arm over the back of her chair. "Dad, didn't Nora tell you? I had a girl I liked back then." My heart felt like it had been punched hard, the pain making my breath hiss. Mrs. Mitchell's face turned stern. "This isn't the time for games. It's Nora's birthday today." Lance's smile widened as his hand rested on Brooke's belly. "Isn't it perfect timing with everyone here? Let's clear things up." His gaze turned to me. "She's pregnant. What do you think we should do, babe?" Brooke had been blushing and keeping her head down since they arrived, not saying a word. My hands, hidden under the table, had already drawn blood, but my face remained expressionless. Lance leaned back in his chair, lazily staring at me. "You know what to do, right?" My dad slumped back into his chair, unable to say a word. Everyone at the table was looking at me, waiting for my reaction. Not a single person spoke up in my defense. I couldn't help but smile as I looked down. "Congratulations," I said. Lance glanced at the dishes on the table, frowned, and snapped his fingers to call a waiter. "Add some light dishes and bring a clay pot of porridge," he ordered. He glanced at Brooke. "She has morning sickness. I have to worry about everything she eats." The smile on his lips and the tenderness in his eyes felt like hot irons searing my skin. Brooke was clearly uncomfortable, frowning at the food Lance was bringing to her mouth. Mrs. Mitchell remained silent for a long time before standing up. "Mitch, come out for a moment." Lance's smile faded as he put down his chopsticks. "Whatever you have to say it here." He looked around, his gaze lingering on me. It felt like needles in my back. My hand under the table had unconsciously started gripping my thigh. "Mom, are you worried Nora will give me a hard time?" "That won't happen." My parents remained silent, just looking at me with pity. I knew Lance had been waiting for this day for too long, waiting for me to set him free. In our 5 years of marriage, he had shown his disgust for me too many times. I quickly lowered my head, afraid he might see the tears about to flow. "Don't worry, I'm ready to sign anytime," I said. It was Mrs. Mitchell who had suggested celebrating my birthday, perhaps thinking it could repair our marriage, but it only made things worse. Mrs. Mitchell sighed and patted my back. "Nora, don't be rash," but her hand couldn't ease my sorrow and embarrassment. Lance was so impatient that he took out the divorce papers and placed them in front of me. He grabbed one of my hands and shoved a pen into it, but his movement faltered. The back of my hand was swollen and raw, with traces of blood still visible. He frowned slightly and averted his eyes. "Just sign it," he said. His words were so soft that only he and I could hear them. He said, "Free me and free yourself too."